So, hello everyone, my name is Rafaela Kaćunić and I'm based in Berlin, but I'm originally from Croatia where my whole family lives. Oh, why is it going? No, stop. Can I do that by myself? Like, I don't want it to just, but it just, like...
Just press this. It should...
I know, but it was like a dia show, it was just, I didn't click anything.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
You see?
Yeah.
I don't want that. So anyways, I'm the co-founder, publisher, creative director and editor of Badland magazine. This is Badland magazine. I don't know if you ever saw it or heard about it, but it's like a publication in English dedicated to the Balkan area. And so I'll leave some magazines here. I brought two so you can have a look. And apart from that, I studied image design and visual communication in Paris, so I'm really more like yeah, from the fashion industry, and now my career shifted more into like publishing and art and a whole mix of culture and art and fashion. So my intent today is to kind of show you how I work for my clients, hoping it could help you like to start your own thing or to define your own universe. So the most important question is like in the beginning before you start like your own project, who are you? And nowadays it's quite hard because we are surrounded by so many. Okay, this is really annoying, I'm sorry. Because I can't do it in my own pace and then it's like sorry, little we'll be fine. But I think you're gonna get like I always go back and forth. It's just gonna be a mess, you know.
I don't know.
So yeah, I wanted to start like that because before creating your universe and starting a label, you have to ask yourself really like important questions, especially because you're probably on Instagram the whole time and like looking what other people are doing, and you get really distracted from your own universe actually, because you just want to kind of follow and keep up with the media landscape that you see on a daily basis. So it is really important to kind of escape from this clusterfuck and to kind of like define your own universe by just starting where you are and asking yourself who you are. Okay, and now I'm ready for the next slide. So I really like this quote. It's from a US American tennis player, Arthur Ashe. Start where you are, use what you have and do what you can, because sometimes we're like so overwhelmed with everything because we want to do this and we want to do that and we want to do shoes, but maybe also dresses. I don't know if you want to start your own fashion label, you have so many questions, but maybe it's just good to sit down and really see, okay, what's possible right now, what can I do in that moment, and what can I work with? So yeah, for the beginning it's really important to ask yourself some really basic questions, like who are you, what is your story, and what is your intention? And what helps sometimes is, like, it sounds a bit weird, but writing a fictive, or like a letter to a stranger, like a letter of intent, just like explaining a stranger your story. It's like, imagine you're writing a piece to a magazine or to anyone, like not making up things, but really just telling your story. Who are you? Where were you born? What was your life about? And what is moving you? And like everything, like just be really creative about it and try to make that letter come alive through images and so on. I think it really helps to unblock the creative process in defining your own universe. And then once you got through this painful first, I don't know, period of defining your creative universe, you can go ahead and think about, okay, how does this influence my brand DNA? Because it doesn't mean that your letter of intent has to be translated to your brand DNA. It's just more like, okay, what are the buzzwords or like, you know, values that your brand is evolving around? And like when I say manifesto, it doesn't even mean you have to write like a proper manifesto or whatever. It's more like just buzzwords one after another, just more like a brainstorm to kind of shape your brand DNA and to kind of understand what you want to do and carry with it. Then, I mean, this is like really fast paced. Of course, there are steps in between, but like what helps me when I do, for example, creative direction for some brands or consulting, I start with the buzzwords. I make like a brainstorm, like a map, and then I just start imagining colors, like what is the mood. Because colors, you don't really have to define yourself. It's more like a mood. It could be like a gradient or like just an image that you find and you think it kind of combines everything that inspires you, or like the colors and everything. So I think colors are really important to kind of set the right tone, like literally. And then you can still change them always, of course, if your buzzwords or ideas change. But I think for the beginning it kind of helps to see also where the photographic direction could go along. So once you have the colors, you can, you know, do some research in museums and exhibitions, I don't know, like about photographers, and not just Instagram or like people in your bubble. It's more like really going out there and understanding the photographic universe and world, and see how this connects to your manifesto and what could actually match the color mood that you were imagining for your brand, at least for the first collection or the collection you're working on. So it's really important to set this kind of in the beginning, because from that actually the visual identity evolves. Like some people maybe start with the visual identity first because they're like more like into graphic design and that's their background, and that's why they want to first of all start with the logo or whatever. But for me personally, I'm more like intuitive and, you know, I'm more sensitive, so I prefer to build a little creative world and then dig into the technical stuff like logo and graphic design and so on. But I'm also not a graphic designer, so of course this is not as much fun for me as the other stuff. So it could be the opposite for you. But it's really important, if you're not a graphic designer, to try not to be one. Like, it's better to ask a friend or like whoever you feel good or matching, suitable for your brand, and to see if you can pay them or not, but to see if you can have a deal or something to create that logo and that visual identity together, because it's really important you have someone who knows how to do it and yeah, how to move on with it. So yeah, what's really like down there, I have like little notes which are really important. Like the most important thing is to stay authentic and to have like a coherent creative direction, because it kind of gives you a strong foundation and base to build your brand up. And you can always change the other parts, but if you know what you're standing for, it's always a good thing. So then in the next slides, I will talk about, I called it trend forecast because it's more like an overall analysis of the market you want to dig into. So you have to be aware, you have to become aware of, so once you know what you want to do, kind of, you have to, or you think you know what you want to do, you have to kind of see what are the opportunities of your environment. So for example, the rise of the new kind of affordable luxury market, like I just picked 2 brands that are like on top at the moment. And you know, what is the trend? Like, if this space is opening up, that's great for young designers because you can actually, like, you know, you don't have to go to mass production and mass market, but you also don't have to be super luxurious. You can kind of play in between the spaces. But what's also important when just talking about the environment is to be aware that you don't produce more trash. Like, even if you really love fashion and like you really want to get your brand out there, it's important you again see where you stand, what you have, and how to recycle and upcycle your fabrics and maybe even clothes that you already own. It doesn't really have to be part of your concept. It can just be like part of your values. You know, you don't have to, because nowadays I think it's self-speaking. You should not produce, like, you should be transparent about your production, and you should really think about how to leave as little trash and pollution as possible when starting a new business, and also trying to not use plastic that much, and like just being aware of the consequences of what the business that you're doing. I think that's absolutely necessary today. But then also you have, when talking about the opportunities, you have the competitors mapping, which always helps young brands, or brands in general actually, to kind of define and to check where you stand. I just did like a quick example, like this is my perception of it, but like it's so individual. You can even like use other words at the ends, like depends on the brand you want to do, but I just took something more general. And it's just good to be aware of what the market looks like and where you want to be and to position yourself, just to make sure that you are targeting the right audience also. So it's not so much about looking left and right and what the others are doing, it's just to be analyzing the market and being realistic about it. And then you have to define your core customer. So who do I see wearing my stuff, or who do I see buying the product that I produced? So this is like your wish customer. So the ones you head for and the ones who will be loyal to you. And then and it's really important that you really write down who this person is, how old is he or she or whoever, and how do they dress, what are their values, like to be really specific about who is wearing my clothes. And then you have the supplemental audience, which is more like, okay, but who could be the rest? Like maybe someone just more into, I don't know, function wear, but they also like aesthetics, and maybe they'll find my brand interesting, and how to reach them through other maybe collaborations or whatever. So it's good to know the core and the potential audience actually, because they could become your core audience maybe in like 5 years from now. So it's important to do your research in any direction and analyze your market, because if you're not curious, you won't get far, because people will always be ahead of you. And but it doesn't mean that you have to compare yourself. You should really not compare yourself, because you're just in the beginning. It should more be like a realistic view of where you want to go. Then about the communication strategy, which is more like the outward appearance and advertising. So think out of the box. Like for example, I really like this advertising from Gucci, because usually the beauty industry is just like so flat and boring. And I find this advertising so much fun, and it's like, I don't know, it's engaging with the same audience, but in a different, more like funny way, which is like very contemporary. And so it's like, just think out of the box, be creative, and see how far you can take it. And then I just took this example of a young brand from Barcelona, Paloma Wool, because I find their storytelling on all channels quite coherent. Like, they're talking about, like, she's talking about herself, like it's her name and it's the name of a project, and she's really accurate about communicating her universe and her community, who she works with, the photographers, the models. It's like really, it's real. You can really feel it's a real thing, and it's not like a brand just falling from the sky, but it has like really deep roots in a way. So maybe you can check her out, just like to see what I mean, because it's really important to not just communicate one thing on the website, another thing in the e-shop, another thing on Instagram, and then a third thing on your private I don't know, it just has to, like everything, you have to breathe your project, like it has to be you, so you feel confident on communicating it on all channels. And then when talking about partnerships and collaborations, which are really important nowadays, like to kind of expand your audience, but also to get more creative and see what's possible. So for example, this is the second cover of the third issue of This is Badland magazine, and we did like a collaboration with Johanna Jaskowska, who does like beauty face filters. And it was really good because her audience engaged with ours, and it was like a really good exchange, and we did like an filter with her and an interview and so on, like a feature, an article about her. And so it was like a really nice collaboration, and I think you can always gain something out of it if you're not just by yourself, but want to share and want to step out your comfort zone even, like, and see, okay, how can I push this further? And I just put this image of this Dior basketball because it just shows like, okay, different universes can come together and just be really open and creative about it. Or like, I don't know, maybe you have some musician friends or artists, I don't know, who you could collaborate with. So it's always a good idea to kind of team up and see how this could push your brand further. So yeah, be creative, authentic, and coherent, and don't believe the hype just because everyone is working with one person. It also doesn't mean you have to do it. It's just more like, okay, what's in your community? Who's like, because she was also a friend of mine, and it felt natural. So it was just a really nice way to collaborate. but don't like get too hooked on, I don't know, the classic collaborations, and to have too much pressure to work with some famous people or whatever. It's not about the followers. It's really just about what works well together and how authentic it is. Then for the last slide, I'll talk shortly about the action plan. So I call it that way because it's more like taking the product out there, and it's less maybe theoretical, it's more physical, because you have to think about where do you want to place your product. So for example, which influential people, I don't like the word influencers, that's why I'm saying influential people, like could be journalists, different media partners, whoever, like where do you see your product, in which magazines, reach out to the magazines that you want to collaborate with, and just be very precise about where you want to place your product, because I think if you are, it's possible. Like I think if the product really matches the platform, it will be a perfect match, and you'll have a go, and you'll collaborate on that. Then what's also really important is to make a proper distribution concept. So just to be aware of where do I want to sell my product, so in which cities, just cities, or also like smaller cities, or I don't know, like, or some off locations, or is it more like pop-up stores, or is it more like during, I don't know, festival, like you have trillion ways to distribute your brand and your product, or is it maybe just your own e-shop, or is it just through online e-shops? I don't know. It's like there are so many options, but it's really important to define how you imagine like the perfect distribution for your product. Yeah, do you want to work with wholesale or not? And how do the stores look like where you want to be inside? It's also really important. And what other brands do you want to be surrounded by, so that it carries the right notion on your brand as well. So it's really important to be aware of this distribution concept that you want to pursue. And if you're not good at it, like just do your research, ask friends, always reach out to people and see what they think. If you're not really sure about where to place your product, it's good to ask, maybe just go to a store and bound with the people and ask them what they think about the product. Just be very open and confident about it. And I always had like the feeling that if you're open and positive about your product or what you want to do and you believe in it, that people will at least help you to move on, or will at least tell you, well, maybe not in this store, but maybe you should just sell it online or in the next store, I don't know. So just try to be open to the world. And then once you have that figured out and you kind of laid out everything and everything is going to get out there, you can think about the event strategy as well. Like, how do you want your launch event to look like? It should be in the same kind of universe and mood as your brand DNA, actually. So we are over with time. Shall I stop? I'm done. I thought I have 5 more minutes. Okay, I can just stop talking now. It's fine. So yeah, just go out there and do it.